Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, January 17th, 2024, and this is a special meeting of the Cupertino City Council. Madam City Clerk, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now the roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Chow.
Here.
Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Way.
Here.
Vice Mayor Fruin.
Here.
Mayor Mohan.
Here. Okay, we will start the study session. Item number 1. The subject is to provide input to staff on potential service level reductions for FY 24-25, proposed and final budgets. There's a staff report, I take it?
Mayor Mohan, thank you. Thank you, Council, for giving us the opportunity to walk you through this proposed service level reduction. We have a brief presentation prepared by Administrative Service Director Christina Alfaro. So Christina and I will tag team on the presentation today, and hopefully that will give Council and also members of the community an insight to what we're proposing today. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, City Manager Wu, and thank you to our video team for getting my presentation up on the screen. I appreciate it. As the City Manager said, we're going to get through a brief presentation to cover our potential service level reductions. We do want to start with a little bit of a history for those that may not be following. How did we get to this point? We're going to give you a bit of an update on our budget forecast and then go right into potential service level reductions for fiscal year 2024-25, finishing up with recommendations and next steps. So as you may recall, if you've been following this story, one of the city's taxpayers was audited by the state. CDTFA is the agency that is responsible for auditing and also accounting for sales tax payments. This just shows a brief history. I'm not going to go over it too much. The slides are included under presentations if you wanted to get a copy, but basically when we received the letter, any information we've received since then. One major portion I will cover, which is the October 2023 date. That's when the council set aside $56.5 million for potential repayment as a result of the audit. We've had questions in previous sessions where we talk about the result of the audit is a loss of $30 million in revenue, yet we've continued to say we need a $15 million reduction. And this kind of helps fill in that gap. We have already made reductions as part of the 23-24 budget, totaling just a little over $15 million. That included eliminating 14 vacant positions, decreasing materials contracts almost across every expenditure category, decreasing transfers out from the general fund to other funds, and also utilizing the city's 115 trust for retiree health or OPEB benefits. So what we're basically doing is we're using the money in that trust to pay for these benefits instead of using general fund dollars, thus freeing up the $1.4 million. And that's how we got to the first $15 million, which left us an additional $15 million in reductions we needed to identify. And so we've continued to bring updated budget forecasts and try to inform council and the public of what is changing. As you may recall, it was either proposed or final budget study session where I told you the only thing I could be certain of was that our forecast was probably wrong and we were going to need to update it. And so to continue that mantra, we're here to update you a little bit on what's changed since last we were here. On the left-hand side is the adopted budget of June 2023 and the assumptions that were there, paying off the facility debt, including no additional development projects in the forecast unless they had already been permitted. We assumed recessions in fiscal year 25 and 29 for all revenues, which meant they stayed flat. Minimal funding for special projects and council work program, that's the CWP abbreviation, and no transfers to our capital reserve. Our new assumptions from January 2024 is switching our budget strategy to really focus on not necessarily vacancies. Those will be an impact of service level reductions, but what are the services? What are really the impacts to the community? We also revised our sales tax forecast based on the latest numbers, reducing it from 11.4 to 9.4 million. We're continuing to watch this number. This is one that may change either up or down as we're starting to see more numbers come in. We also, as I mentioned earlier, Council set aside a committed fund balance of $56.5 million for a potential sales tax repayment. We also increased the minimal funding to special projects and council work program up $500,000 from the million we originally had it in the budget. And we're just kind of trying to be more realistic about looking at our spending patterns to make sure we were aligning the numbers correctly, and also added back in a $2 million transfer for capital reserves, which you see is actually on the list to be reduced this evening. But that is how we got to our new forecast, which is just for the general fund. Again, general fund is where we focus. This is where council has the most discretion. There really are not many restrictions on the general fund in terms of council wants to spend these dollars. And you'll see a lot of red bars with a lot of negative numbers, but really what I want to point you to is the very last red bar with the biggest negative number, which is that 14.9 million. And that's the gap that we need to close. We know our revenues aren't coming in sufficiently high enough to cover our expenses, and I've said this many times before here as well. If we need to balance our budget, we cut expenses or we bring revenues up. That's really the two mechanisms that we have in order to be able to balance the budget. This evening, the focus is still on expenditure reductions, so City Manager will be taking you through those in just a moment. So again, we need ongoing reductions or ongoing new revenue to balance our budget. We are looking at revenue generating opportunities. We were before council in December to talk about potential revenue tax measures. We'll be back in front of council next month for follow-up from that item. In addition to next month as well, in February, we'll be going over some potential fee increases. And again, this evening, we're focusing really on that third bullet, the service level reductions. And with that, I will hand it over to City Manager Wu, who will take you through the potential service level reductions for the upcoming fiscal year.
Thank you, Christina. So as Christina mentioned, tonight's presentation and the proposed service level reduction mainly focuses on all the programs and the funding for each of the programs that will severely impact the general fund. As council may know, that some other programs are funded by other funding mechanism, and we're only focusing on the proposed list that will be impacting our general fund. So in a long list of the grouping, so we thought it'll be easier by grouping some of the similar programs by similarity. So we categorize 4 of these types, and the first type is the operation and maintenance. Mainly it's mostly in the Public Works Department. We're talking about reducing sidewalk, shifting the responsibility from city to the property owners, same thing with street, trees, and also bring some of the contract services to in-house. Then we go on into infrastructure. We love the city. We have a wonderful implementation of a great infrastructure for the city. However, we're proposing to the council for some of the slowing down of these programs. For instance, we're proposing the shifting a $2 million transfer from the CIP general fund to the CIP reserve so that we can reduce the implementation of some of these CIP programs. We're also looking at ways to true up our finances, and which is what we call the fiscal accountability. For instance, one of the line items that you will see is to mandate the credit card surcharges that the city has been absorbing and then passing it back on to the users. Lastly, and this is probably one of the most highly interested topic that has more direct impact to the community. For instance, some of the line items that are being proposed, and one of the first items that council actually talked about is the 4th of July fireworks and program. Along that line, there's some suggested program funding such as chamber contracts, sister cities, Earth Day, and other events and whatnot, which we'll dive into a little bit deeper in a moment. Next slide. So as I mentioned, I'm not going to go through every line item, but wanted to kind of highlight some of the items from this list. Again, this is the first category that I'll be walking council through, operation and maintenance. The first line item is, as I mentioned, is to reduce the materials and contracts, some of the programs, which amounts to roughly $1.7 million. And then the second line item is to shift the credit card fees to the users, which amounts to roughly $430,000. And looking down to other items, library extra hours, this is a program that is currently being funded by the state funding, which we're proposing to reduce from our general fund, and that is a total amount of $160,000. We're also further proposing to further reduce the janitorial services to the city facility, which will be a great saving of about $100,000 to the city. We're also proposing to reduce the publication of Sing production from a monthly publication to a quarterly publication, which will save the city roughly about $92,000. Again, all of this together, if council approves the proposal, would amount to about $3 million in saving. Next slide. Infrastructure, as I mentioned, we're proposing to reduce the $2 million transfer from the general fund to CIP, so that will slow down the pace of some of these capital improvement program. When we're able, we're definitely coming back to council to revamp the $2 million or additional transfer to pick up additional projects. For the time being, we're proposing to slow it down, which will save the city around $2 million. We're also proposing council to shift the sidewalk maintenance responsibility to the property owner. In our supplemental packet to council, we provide a comparison chart showing the surrounding cities, which city has provided that program to their residents and which cities have not. If council approves this program, that will be another saving of roughly $1 million. Other projects such as asking the grounds maintenance for, this will be mainly CUSD, Cupertino Unified School District fields maintenance to be going back to the school district, that will be saving the city another $700,000. Next slide. Fiscal accountability, the first line item is really not a saving, but a true up, as if we call it in our accounting. So the current contract with the sheriff's office calls for a certain number of hours that we predicted when the contract was put in place. We've realized that over the years, the city is getting a refund, a rebate for the hours that was not utilized, and that amounts to roughly $1 million. So we're proposing to reduce that $1 million from our general fund budget to really true up in terms of the fiscal accountability. The second line item is really a internal operating platform technology software. My IT director should be here to correct me on my terminology, but something to facilitate a faster, more efficient way for staff to utilize our day-to-day work platform. And that software isn't cheap. So we're proposing to delay that implementation, and that will save the city roughly $780,000. All of the others program that we're proposing to reduce the service will amount to roughly $2.5 million. Next slide. This slide has many of the programs that is more has high interest by the community. The first item I mentioned is the 4th of July fireworks funding that council has already contemplated in December, and then others are partnership with chambers, cities, sister cities. We're not asking council to eliminate the program, but what we're asking council to consider is to reduce the budget, the funding for such programs. By saying that, I'm also suggesting council perhaps to look at other ways to support the programs, perhaps sponsorships or grants or other possibility collaboration to keep the program. What we're focusing on tonight is the budget, is the funding to support such program. We're certainly more than happy to take questions from council or instruction or direction from council if the council's wishes to continue the program, but to find money elsewhere. We're more than happy to take that challenge and come back to council for additional result. Next slide. As Director Alfaro mentioned, our goal is to figure out how to get to the $15 million structural deficit. The list altogether amounts to roughly $10.5 million. you will ask us, how do we get to the rest of 4.5? So as Christina alluded to, we're coming back to council in another study session to look at potential fee increases at the next council meeting. We're hoping with the fee increase and the service level reduction and other revenue generation strategy, we're hoping that perhaps by May or June, we're able to reach the goal of getting that $15 million altogether. Next slide. So our recommendation for tonight, so before I get to the roadmap, I just want to kind of just point, and through the mayor, if I have the liberty of kind of walking through council of tonight's process, we'll be wrapping up the presentation, and if we can ask the mayor to open up the public comments for this portion before council gets a chance to ask questions. I'm hoping to take council category by category to go over those questions, and really what we're hoping for is to get a sense of council's direction on these category by category. So when we come back for the actual adopted budget or proposed budget, we're aligned. So staff's proposal is aligned with council's vision. We're more than happy, and as I mentioned earlier, to take some of the items from council to say, hey, we need more information. We're more than happy to come back. So in the category discussion, I'm hoping to get a sense from council, some of the items that you feel strongly that should remain, and budget should also remain for those categories. I'm hoping to get a council consensus on those categories, those line items, or others that you think, hey, I'm not ready to make the decision because I don't have all of the information available. So I'm hoping to get those direction from council tonight. So next slide, what we're hoping to, the slide before. So what we're hoping to get to, as Christina keeps showing the roadmap and just kind of take you back in the memory lane. We started this journey actually before October, but we made a promise last fall that we'll be coming back to you every month. October, we did, we asked you to set aside money. November, we did a Q1 update. December, we came to you with ballot. Today, we're coming to you with service level reduction. We're coming to you in February for fee increases. We're coming to you every month for that, and really kind of leading up to the May, June budget adoption. Next slide. Keep going. That's it. So that wraps up my presentation for the portion. If council and the mayor indulges us, I would like mayor to open the public hearing, the public comments now before I can entertain any questions from council. And Mayor, just another suggestion, given that we're going to be going 4 rounds of deliberation, if you can consider reducing the limitation for council's questions from 5 minutes to a shorter period, because we'll be going through multiple rounds.
Thank you, Madam City Manager. Just one point of clarification. Since we're opening it up for public comments, this is for the entire presentation.
That's correct.
Right, so that's what we'll do. We're opening the meeting up for public comments. Anyone who wants to come and speak. How many cards are there, Madam City Clerk?
Yes, Mayor. So far I have 2 blue speaker cards, although it looks like we are receiving additional 2 speaker cards for in-house comments, and I see 1 hand raised on Zoom.
Should we go with Zoom first, or?
That is up to you. Generally, our practice has been to allow the people in-house to speak first.
Let's do exactly that then.
Okay, so just a reminder, anyone wishing to speak on this item, please have your speaker card submitted or your hand raised on Zoom in the next 9 minutes, and you are allowed 3 minutes total to speak. First, we have Jennifer Griffin, followed by Elisa Sakas and Jeff Moe. Just to... One more comment. Okay.
Isn't on, is it? Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin. I didn't think I'd have to come to this meeting for tonight. I was going to come later, but someone told me you guys were going after our street trees and our sidewalks. That is not going to happen. I didn't spend 5 years in the county trying to get my neighborhood of Rancho Rinconada into the city to protect our trees that were being cut down by the county and the monster houses. That's 5 years of my life going to Board of Supervisors meetings with Bell and Semidian. We're not doing that. The promise was when Rancho annexed, there was $50,000 set up to maintain our trees, and the city purchased the tree boom ladder equipment to maintain them. We were the only section of Cupertino that had trees. Some of them are bordering on 80 years, and we are not going to allow homeowners to maintain them. That happened in San Jose, and all of the trees have been cut down and hacked up. San Jose recently came back and said they needed to start having themselves maintain their trees. This is a broken promise to a section of Cupertino called Rancho Rinconada. We have 1,500 homes, and each one of them has a large tree. I don't know what's going on with the rest of Cupertino, but you are not going, when we came into Cupertino, we had pristine sidewalks and we had pristine trees. You are not going to attack or cut our trees. About 10 years ago, someone came up with the bright idea that because the library needed extra hours, this is a former mayor of Cupertino, I won't mention his name, that they were going to stop maintaining our street trees and our sidewalks to give the library an extra 10 hours a week. I'm sorry, it didn't go anywhere. So I would say right now that we need to stop trying to attack the trees in Cupertino. If you don't like Rancho Rinconada, just tell us to our faces. Don't try to gut our trees. This is how bad it is. And don't try to go after our swim center, and don't try to cut us out of this city. There's a lot of people in Rancho who care greatly. And I can pull up Semidian and Bell and start asking them questions about why they thought it was good for us.
Thank you, Jennifer. That is your time. You are now muted. Thank you. And I see we have Elisa Sakas and Jeff Moe. If you are planning on consolidating your time, you need up to 5 people to consolidate. You're just standing together. Okay, thank you. Very good.
After the other, yes.
But do we get extra minutes?
3 minutes total unless you have
Okay,
5 people.
What?
Okay. Well, we would have done 2 cards, but we wanted to speak in succession. Is that okay?
You could
would have.
Should I fill out another
He could.
card?
Should he fill out another
Yes.
card?
Yes,
Okay, I'll
please,
start
yes.
talking and then. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Mohan, City Council, and City staff. I am Elisa Sakas. I'm the president of the Rotary Club of Cupertino, and with me is Jeff Moe, and he is our president-elect. We understand and we're sympathetic to the budget challenges our city is facing, and we'd like to offer our support, perhaps in the area of community benefit that you've talked about. Cupertino Rotary executes some 50 charitable and community building projects every year in partnership with many other organizations in our community. We have funding from sponsorships, fundraisers, and donations, and a very robust volunteer capacity. Our local projects are divided into 4 major areas, and these are just a few examples in each of the areas. In community service, we partner with Safeway to deliver Thanksgiving meals, with West Valley Community Services for back-to-school shopping. We partner with Rebuilding Together to perform home maintenance for the elderly and disabled residents in our community. In youth services, we have projects ranging from reading Dr. Seuss books to first graders to awarding a 4-year scholarship each year to a student in Cupertino to attend Cupertino State University. San Jose State University. We're also supporting mental health initiatives in our schools. In workforce development, we're assisting vets and incarcerated women to continue their education and to re-enter the workforce. In climate action, we're supporting electrification efforts to help our residents convert from gas to electric water heaters, installing solar panels for nonprofits, and providing e-bikes to De Anza students. In addition to this, we execute about 10 international service projects each year. We're already partnering with the city and with the Chamber of Commerce to conduct Mayor Mohan's State of the City address on February 15th, and we welcome opportunities to support Cupertino in other ways. We may be able to fill some gaps or take on projects that need sponsorships to continue, or maybe even create something new. We look forward to the opportunity to further discuss possibilities and collaborate closely for the benefit of our community. Please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. And now we have Jeff Moe. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, council members. My name is Jeff Moe. I'm the president-elect of the Cupertino Rotary Club. And as our club president, Elisa, just said, we are interested in partnering with the city of Cupertino to help preserve some of the long-standing and beloved programs. So the Rotary Club of Cupertino has a tradition of community service. We have financial resources, a robust volunteer capacity, and we stand ready to contribute. We are also happy to team up with other community organizations too in this endeavor. We are confident that the partnership between Cupertino Rotary and the City of Cupertino can generate positive outcomes for the community. We look forward to the opportunity to further discuss possibilities and collaborate closely for the benefit of our community. And I'll end there so you can all leave 2 minutes early.
Thank you, Jeff. Next, we have Louise Sidoti, followed by Peggy Griffin, followed by Jean Bedord. Welcome, Louise.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. I'm Louise Sidoti. I want to thank the staff for all your hard work and research, as shown by the very detailed and quantity of information that was made available to all the residents on the city website regarding options for service reductions to correct our deficit. I think it was hard work, and it's obvious that a lot of thought was given to these different options in helping our city to achieve a good budget. I would like to ask you to keep cross guards, as it's important to the safety of our children and students. And I think the priority for the city now has moved on especially to safety. So I think the safety of our children, and it's a very paltry amount for the cross guards, like 19,000 in a budget deficit of 50 something. So, and then secondly, if the city can do anything to help Earth Day continue, and maybe help fundraise or whatever to make it continue on the Lincoln Park, which is sort of in the middle of our city, that would be wonderful, because I think Earth Day is something that serves all of the community, and we all care about climate change and protecting the earth, and it has a huge attendance. So any help the city can give in fundraising or making it possible for us to keep Earth Day, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much for all that you all do to make our city move forward in this difficult time.
Thank you, Louise. Next, we have Peggy Griffin, followed by Jean Bedord, followed by Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, Mayor Mohan, council members and staff. Thank you for the detailed information. I want to request that, like Ms. Sidoti, that we do not reduce the crossing guards. They're the bedrock of the Safe Routes to School program. They benefit everyone, pedestrians, cyclists, and the motorists. And since we've got the part of the Vision Zero success is Safe Routes to School. Instead, look at the reductions: fewer newsletters in the Safe Routes to School, fewer meetings. Combine Bike Fest with Earth Day and look for a nonprofit to sponsor it, such as Rotary. They have had their kind offer. The school field maintenance. My concern with eliminating that is that I believe that the contract between at least CUSD and the city says that in exchange for the use of the school's grounds as parks, we maintain the fields. And some areas of our city, that's the only park we have, is the school. So please, look into it before you cut it. Major sidewalk repairs, I would keep major sidewalk repairs, but eliminate all the yellow dot ramp replacements. Those ramps are still good. So just don't do the yellow dots. And to get a handle on the fiscal accountability, I would add enterprise funds for senior center, Blackberry Farm Pool, Blackberry Farm Picnic, and Sports Center. When my husband and I have struggled over the years with finances, the first thing we do is start categorizing and keeping detailed notes. So as a city, I would expect that as a minimum. Also, consider eliminating or significantly reducing employee credit cards. I know I worked a long time ago, but only managers and senior staff got credit cards, and the city seems to have an enormous number. Consider eliminating the contingency fund on the overall budget. You've already got a 10% contingency fund on all the contracts. So it's like a contingency on a contingency. So anyway, those are my suggestions, and thank you for looking at it.
Thank you, Peggy. Next we have Jean Bedord, followed by Rhoda Fry, followed by Stephen Scharf. Welcome, Jean.
Good evening, Mayor Mahan, council members, and staff. My name is Jean Bedord, and I'm a resident of Cupertino. I'm here to commend you for your work in identifying service level cuts to balance the budget. It's tough trying to downsize budgets. As I reviewed the cuts, I ended up putting them in 3 buckets. 2 were easy to identify. The first is the big ticket items involving policy changes, which would cost customers, i.e. the credit card charges, sidewalk, and tree maintenance. These have the biggest impact on your budget. The second category were the penny-wise, pound-foolish items, such as reducing conferences and training for staff. The city should be investing in staff. Their jobs are tough enough with reduced resources. Same for eliminating senior center part-time staffing. Our city is short on senior services, so why cut? The last category is the nickel and diming, small cuts with a major impact. I'm particularly disturbed by any cuts to community partners. The city needs to get out of the mode of doing everything themselves, which sadly was typical of the prior council, and look to ways to leverage nonprofits and the many volunteers in the city. The Historical Society, the Chamber of Commerce, the Sister Cities, and Rotary all have energetic and passionate volunteers, but they have very limited budgets. Charging them sheriff's costs for festivals would kill festivals. So why aren't these events considered economic development? Other cities recognize this and would happily welcome them. For these nickel and diming events, I suggest the city identify alternative ways to work with partners. The city has in lieu resources. The nonprofits have volunteers. There are better solutions than flat out budget cuts to the community events. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Jean. Next we have Rhoda Fry, followed by Stephen Scharf. Welcome, Rhoda.
Hi, I have a slide. So this is how I ran on OpenGov today, and in the past we had, in the budget, we had about 225 open employees budgeted. Now that's down to 212, but that's certainly quite a bit greater than the 200 and some odd that we had in past years. And that's budgeted, so we don't even know what the actuals are. And I would like to know, how many FTEs does the city have right now? But certainly we're a good over 5% higher budgeted head count than we were in pre-COVID. So, you know, and along those lines, I'd like to see some more clarity around what we really are, how much we really need to cut. I did send a long email, and I have a table on that. So, really, when we're looking at taxes, it's 73% reduction. Not really when you really sort of dig down and look at what was happening. So if we look at the most recent, maybe we're close to that because we had so much extra sales tax that was coming in. But realistically, we're not at a 73% decline, and we're not at a 30 million decline either, realistically, especially when you consider that, you know, we were about 25 million net in tax revenues, and we're going to be losing, you know, close to 15 or so million of that, getting down to 11 to 15. That's what it seems like to be our what we're expecting that our target, our new target, is going to be somewhere between 9 and 11 million in sales tax revenue. That's what we're expecting. We were getting around 25, so that's what the gap is. And by the way, when we had that huge gap, we were actually putting a lot of money in the bank. And that information is also my public comment for later today. As far as, I did have a couple of errors in my report. Apparently, Earth Day does not make money for the city. That's kind of a bummer, but I did like the idea of combining it with bikes. We need to maintain our sidewalks and street trees. This is a public safety issue. Public safety is number one, right? Quality of life is also important too. Please make sure that dangerous trees are removed timely. Also, I'm glad to see that OpenGov now does show golf in the senior center, but not the Blackberry Swim. And also, when you look at the golf numbers, consider that some numbers have been added to the golf course that really weren't created by the golf course. So it was like, let's think about turning the golf course back to nature. Let's charge it the golf course. Let's put in fencing to protect walkers on the path next door. I suspect that's in the golf course too. Again, the city should pay for staff to be educated if it makes them better at their job. That's an investment. Same for the audit. We need to keep that money for the audit. It's $70,000. It's an investment. It's not a cost. Thank you.
Rhoda. That is your time. And next, our final speaker is Stephen Scharf in Community Hall. Then we will move to Zoom.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to echo the other speakers that please don't eliminate the crossing guards. That's a safety issue. And echo Peggy Griffin, concern about if we stop maintaining the school fields, do we lose the use of them, or is CUSD going to start maintaining them and charge us for the use of them? Are we really saving anything? Sidewalk maintenance, my wife's parents in San Francisco, where you do pay for sidewalk maintenance, the sidewalks are terrible because the people are not maintaining them, and when they do get cited, it's about $2,000 per square to have a contractor or the city come out. I'm pretty sure this is penny wise and pound foolish to make our sidewalks more dangerous. And this may be for the next session on income, but in the past two planning commissioner academies, we were encouraged and pled with to keep our impact fees current at the maximum level that the Nexus studies show. And for several of our fees, we have not increased them in over 7 years. So we are subsidizing developers with money from the general fund at a time that we are very short of funds, and that really is not a good plan. The only other thing, credit card fees. I know a lot of businesses are eliminating cash and checks because those actually do cost more to process than the 1 3/4 to 2 1/4% credit card fees. So you may save that money, but you may end up incurring other costs by eliminating that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And next we will move to Zoom, where we have two hands raised, Lisa Warren and Jennifer Sheeran. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm popping in and out because I'm at work and have to work probably till midnight. So unfortunately, this day was not great. Crossing guards to me is a no-brainer. They're needed, and in fact, you're helping in many cases people who are low income and they would lose their income that they're getting. And I hope you don't think that's okay. but again, they're needed for safety reasons, as are city-maintained sidewalks and street trees for reasons that others have mentioned. And actually, I think if my sidewalks have been chewed up by someone and made actually worse in October, well, worse in some cases and maybe okay in others. And the work is still not done. And the need for PG&E to come out twice already in that time period to mark where things are, because the things have faded, the flags have blown away or been taken away or whatever. It was done very sloppily by whoever the vendor is. And it's still out there. And it in itself, I've had people say, they go on their walks and they're like, we're tripping over these blobs of concrete, which is what is created when sidewalks are cut so that they can be lifted later. But the powder concrete is left there and it gets wet and it creates bumps that people are tripping over. I personally went out and cleaned my own sidewalk and got all the crap off my plants that they sprayed so my plants wouldn't suffer, but not everybody did that. So I think maybe making sure you have somebody doing the right job or the job right, and not having to redo things would help with the cost. And I do not think that people will take care of their own sidewalks. They also, I don't think most of them will take care of street trees. That's already being done. Street trees are planted and they used to have watering bags on them. That's no longer the practice for the city. People are supposed to water them. They're dying. So money is being wasted on trees being planted and not maintained. There are people that will care and do it, but there are probably more that won't. So I think that's a bad idea. And you're trying to build an urban canopy, you need to help support that. I could go on and on, but I'm going to run out of time. I really feel that this punishing residents or making it appear that you're going to be desperate for tax money. People are tired of being overtaxed, and I think you need to be very careful of the optics of all of this.
Thank you, Lisa. That is your time. And our final speaker is Jennifer Sharon. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening again. Good evening, council members, Mayor Mohan, and staff. I'm Jennifer Sheeran, and I'm speaking on behalf of only myself tonight. Many of the items in the proposed list of service reductions I can agree are necessary, though unpleasant, but others should not be implemented. 3 of the items should not be cut. Those 3 items are eliminating crossing guards at high schools, eliminating the Earth Day Festival, and moving movie nights and other city-sponsored events all to Memorial Park. Removing crossing guards, as other people mentioned, would directly impact the safety of our most vulnerable, the children in our city, as well as discourage active transportation to our schools. Furthermore, high school students and middle school students are much more likely than elementary age students to be traveling to school, not accompanied by a parent. They are the ones that most need supervision at crossings. We also should not cancel the Earth Day Festival. It's incredibly popular and is growing in size every year. The savings of less than $20K doesn't offset the loss of enjoyment of this festival by so many residents, nor its impact on our climate goals. It's a small enough cost that booth or sponsorship fees could offset much of that cost. This is also one of the few events held on the east side of Cupertino and not at Memorial Park. We need to be conscious of the equity and locations for our city events. Yes, the Bike Fest is also needed. We need to encourage greater non-car use in our city. I do also have a suggestion for cost savings that I hope will be considered. Based on the savings from the minimum wage mailers, changing all Parks and Rec catalogs to online only would save at least $50,000 a year. Small reminder postcards, which are much cheaper, could be sent out to residents if needed. This would not only be a cost reduction, but also be a green action, as many residents do not read these catalogs and immediately recycle or possibly even throw them out when they arrive. I hope that you'll consider my input tonight and all the other residents that have spoken. And thank you again for all you do for Cupertino.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Mayor, that was our final speaker on this item.
Okay, so that ends the public comments portion of this meeting for this item. So I'd like to bring it back to council, and just to speed things along, maybe 2 minutes per council member to ask questions of staff, city manager as well as Director Alfaro and Director Morley.
And through the mayor, point of clarification, we're talking about 2 minutes per round.
That's right. So the potential service level reductions have been divided into 4 categories. And so we're going to take each category separately. So the first one we will be starting on is the operations and maintenance category. And maybe it'll help if we could get that slide up on the screen, Director Alfaro. And so if each of us could debate the items in the operations and maintenance category for 2 minutes each, we can take it from there. So basically, just to reiterate, we're not taking any actions about funding or not funding. We are looking at sort of a high level, we're looking to give staff a high level direction as to how to proceed when we actually delve into the budget and approve the budget in the May-June timeframe. So this is just a list of reductions that staff has proposed. And so in the next few minutes, if we could, we don't have to look at each and every item on the, for example, in the operations and maintenance category, but we, if there's anything you feel strongly about, we can say, hey, this is not for negotiation. I absolutely don't want to cut this. And if there's a majority agreement, we will just take it off and hopefully not see it again till the budget is balanced. So that's the process, and I hope we're all okay with it. And so let's start. Whoever wants to start with comments to staff about the operations and maintenance service level reductions. I'm not seeing any lights. Okay, so. Okay. So is that you? Yes. Okay. So I see Vice Mayor Fruin's light. So please go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Sure. So with respect to shifting credit card fees to customers, one of the things I'm curious about, I recall, for example, when I went and paid my property taxes, that the county assessor definitely is charging you a fee. However, they do offer an electronic check ACH option. Do we currently offer that for our own?
I believe so, but I'm getting a head nod from Director Alfaro.
Okay,
yes.
Good. Yeah, as long as that is there, I'd feel reasonably okay with this change. I just want to make sure that that's an option so that, you know, if you have to, you can go and find it. Usually with these, you don't even need to have a checkbook available. You just need to find your routing number and your account number and you're done. So I'm sure I will have more questions later, but I'll stop there.
Okay. Councilmember Moore? Oh, is that you? No. That's you. Okay, so now the numbers are all haven't been updated. The names have not been updated. So we'll sort of manage. Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Way.
Thank you, Mayor Mohan. Okay, so I'm listening to public comments and looking at the crossing guard services. I think I have a feeling that it's really important safety issues for us, so I'm hoping that would be off the list and we're not going to take a look at it again. I do agree with Vice Mayor Fruin that the credit card payments, even with a lot of nonprofits, organizations, and all the places that have been paying for a lot of things, we do pay for the credit card percentages if we are using credit card. And the as we are taking check and the electronic
ACH.
I think that would be more than enough to save almost $500,000, $432,000. So I'm used to doing that anyway. Even with the property tax, we do that too, right? Yeah. So I'm good with that. And I really have to agree, reduce conferences and training. That really depends on how city manager sees it. We would like to have qualified staff that's with updated, training. So if that's an item you believe that is important, I will leave city manager and staff to think about it, but I would hope that we keep that as necessary. That would be my comment. Thank you. I'm sorry, one more. I do agree that the SING to save 92 to quarterly, we can really even do it, research a little bit more, see if we can do it electronically. For one, I really don't read it. So I do believe that even with the quarterly, maybe we can get an option of just get it electronically to sign up for electronic, then maybe save further money. A little bit of research on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wei. Councilmember Moore?
Right. Thank you. So this is the question portion. When I'm looking at the general fund annual operating surplus chart, the first year it has a $10.1 million deficit, and then it moves on to the 14.9. So this is a little more of a general question. Is it necessary that we go to the full 15 million at this point, and what's the impact if we were to gradually step into these cuts? So instead of, because I'm looking at the 10.1 million, so instead of going to the fiscal year 2033 14.9 million, we were to step these items each year, and then kind of perhaps have since we have some items that we're not particularly interested in cutting at this time, that can be then come back again next year and say we need to now add these other items. Is that a possibility?
So assuming when we're looking at the forecast chart, so let's focus on the first year at 10.1. Let's say we did not meet the 10.1 reductions, that we needed to close that gap. Staff would likely, unless we could find other funding sources, would recommend the use of our unassigned fund balance, which, as you may recall from our first quarter report, we ended the year with an unaudited estimated amount of fund balance, an additional 20 million over the 3.5 million we thought we were going to have. So we would let council know if we're not able to meet that number, we would start to use down that unassigned fund balance. Now, the only risk related to that is, as we're bringing down 20 million, sounds like a lot, but these are big numbers that we need to close. Every time we're using that fund balance, we know we're structurally deficit, so we're probably not going to be adding back to it. It's just keeping a careful eye, because as things kind of continue to go, maybe it costs a certain amount when we looked at it today, but 5 years from now, that could cost a different amount and a different hole that we would need to fill.
Okay, and then really quick, I'd like to hear from Parks and Rec Department about the catalogs, what impact that would have if it's going to harm us were we to stop that mailing.
So through the mayor, if I may address Councilmember Moore's question. So on a high level, we could definitely take the current Parks and Rec catalog to digital only. My Parks and Rec director tells me that our registration actually depends on the printed material. So it's a marketability. So there's certain survey and a study that has gone into these type of printed only versus digital only, and it seems like that a number of registered participants do go up. So it is a business decision that we will have to go. We will have certain saving on going digital only, but it may cost us in the long run to have a reduced number of participants.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Fruin?
You have roughly 40 seconds left.
Okay, I'll use my 40 seconds.
Councilmember Vice Mayor Fruin?
Going back to Councilmember Wei's suggestion with respect to the scene, if we were to eliminate it entirely and go all digital, do we know what that would save us?
We don't have that cost exactly. Largely, I will say the cost is associated with publication, but we also rely on a vendor to put together, so we can come back to council with that dollar amount.
Okay, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, go ahead.
My 40-second would be if we could do special editions when we need to register, especially for park and recreation, that could be a paper, but the rest could be digital. Just a recommendation.
Understood.
Okay. Did you want to speak?
Yeah.
Yes, please, Councilmember Chow.
Okay. My mic is on. Okay. Yeah, I don't think we should reduce the crossing guards because the consequence of any potential danger is too high, and I think if we can move to a monthly, less more informal newsletter, online newsletter, because right now the thing is professionally designed. That probably costs a lot. However, I do understand that some seniors really appreciate the printed version, so I hope that we allow people to maybe on demand, that we still mail out the printed version. It could be a printed version of the online newsletter to residents. Then the Parks and Rec also, I think we could use postcards to allow people access to the online version, and maybe we can print shorter booklet rather than a really big booklet. That way there is still a marketing, but then the detail, the actual schedule could all be available online, and that would reduce cost. And I really wish we don't eliminate some of these programs, such as the Poet Laureate. Perhaps the Cupertino Library Foundation would be able to partner with the city to fund the program, and then Helper Hands program, maybe Rotary could help partner to continue some of these programs. So I hope some conversation could start with our partners on these programs. Yeah, and then I think if we make the direct payment by e-check available, more visible, likely people would use it. That way, I'm also concerned with paper check that probably will increase the operation cost. So, yeah.
I just wanted to point out that the Poet Laureate is not in the operations and maintenance category, Councilmember Chow. So we could deal with. So this is the. Remember, we're dealing with 4 different categories.
Yeah.
This is the operations maintenance. Then there's.
It's the last row on the first page under the operations and maintenance.
Right.
Through the mayor, so it is part of the proposal, roughly to reduce some of the expenses through Parks and Rec.
Yeah. Okay.
And it says elimination, so.
And clarification, point of clarification, so elimination of the budget related to the program. So I think what I'm hearing from Councilmember Chow's suggestion is to look for sponsorship. So that could be a direction to staff from council to continue the program, but look for other funding sponsorship.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Uh-huh. That's dangerous. I'm afraid I'll knock it over.
Okay. So going back to the operations and maintenance, so we can wrap this up. I'm seeing a definite indication that the crossing guards need to be crossing guard services need to be explored in a way that we maintain the services, and if possible, find other sources of funding. So it's basically a direction to staff to keep the crossing guard services and look for other avenues of funding. And just to go back, and that's pretty much the case for all the reductions, and maybe you can clarify this for me, Madam City Manager. All the reductions that are proposed in this category are reductions in the sense that these should be reductions to the general fund budget, because these are all cuts to the general fund. And so if there are any other options for staff to go back and explore other sources of funding, that's what we should be looking at, and we're not really looking at cutting programs. We are looking at cutting or reducing the general fund impact.
That is correct.
Okay. So I would like to wrap up the operation and maintenance section. Are we okay with crossing guards not reducing crossing guard services? Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So with regards to the crossing guards, that's coming out of the Safe Routes to School program, and it has a $732,000 budget, and there could potentially, because there are monthly newsletters that are generated through that. There is the Fall Bike Fest. If there's some way that some funding could be moved in order to ensure that the crossing guards are kept, I would really like to see that. And I agree with the comments on Earth Day. I think that's pretty critically important as well. Thank you.
Okay, so are we clear on this portion of the service level reductions? Yeah. Yes, Councilmember Chao.
I'm out of time, but so many items. I would like to get more information on the consequence of having residents maintain the public right-of-way, the sidewalks. I mean, when something gets deteriorated, it's much more costly to recover, maintain it, rather than continue to maintain it. So what would be the consequence if the city doesn't maintain? Would that allow, I assume that doesn't mean people get to cut the trees. They will still need permits. But then what would be the consequence? What does that look like? I would like more information.
So we could definitely provide that information, and I believe that's also documented in the supplemental packet to the council member from last night. However, I would defer that to Assistant City Manager to kind of walk us through. Before Matt points this out, and I think we also provided a comparison chart, as I mentioned earlier, that many other cities surrounding us do not provide that services to their residents. So if Matt, you can provide a little detail to that.
Yeah, we'll certainly provide a more in-depth proposal should this go forward through the budget process, but sort of high level, we would definitely put a process in place associated with sidewalk maintenance and street tree maintenance for that matter, that would allow for identification of a defect or a need to correct the issue. So that would likely start with the ability for us, with our current contracts, to mitigate some small issues the first year, and then put the property owner on notice so that they have plenty of notice that there's a potential for replacing the sidewalk in front of their house. So there would be a process that would likely last for a couple of years because sidewalks fail over a long period of time. So plenty of warning ahead of time. And that would all come with a municipal code change to actually codify the process and the change of the expectation for management of sidewalks to the property owners. So again, much more of this would be outlined in detail should this go forward as a budget proposal in May.
Thank you, Director Morley. Vice Mayor Fruin?
So just to clarify, throw in an extra voice for maintaining the crossing guards. I think it's a critically important piece of public safety infrastructure. But with respect to the Poet Laureate program, I'd suggest that we perhaps reach out to the Library Foundation. I think you'd have a very willing partner there that is reasonably well funded.
Okay, so does that conclude the discussion on the operations and maintenance service level reductions? And I hope you have enough direction to proceed, city staff. Crossing guards, you're going to keep the service and look for other avenues of funding. We're going to get more information on the sidewalk maintenance program. Okay. So that's it. No major discussions here. Let's move on to the next category, which is infrastructure. So the total, there are about 6 different items, adding up to about $4 million. And any questions to staff on any of these items? I'm going to make one comment. So the big ticket item here is reducing general fund transfers to the capital improvement fund, which obviously will have an impact on our capital improvement projects. And at some point, maybe I could get some information on what exactly that involves. Director Morley or City Manager?
So Assistant Director Morley can walk into detail, but basically I'll provide a high-level non-public works answer. So basically we're slowing down the CIP progression implementation. So we're just going to have to do a longer lifespan of all of the CIP projects. When we're able, we could reduce that long period of time back to the normal by putting more money back to CIP program. So Matt is nodding, so I think I gave it a good enough, but feel free to add on.
Yeah, I think the one element that I would reinforce with that is that the plan here is that for 5 years we should be able to manage through a reduced CIP. At that point, we're going to really start to see the impact on our infrastructure and need to have a funding source for it. So 5 years is a long time, but it'll come around pretty quick. So we're planning on 5 years of reductions. We will use the reserve dollars that are already in place to get us through. And of course, there's other solutions for dollars wherever possible. We'll be reaching out for grant dollars or for using other dollars that are available for CIP needs where we can possibly find them.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Moore?
Just a quick question about Lawrence Mitty and Jollyman. I thought that those two projects were funded and are ready to go.
So Jollyman is fully funded, and so that one will continue forward. So we're not, at this point, talking about unfunding projects that are already in the CIP, and we'll have that conversation with the council when we bring the CIP closer to the budget time, the April time frame for the CIP. So you'll have the opportunity then, if you want to reconsider any project for unfunding it. And Lawrence Mitty also, because it has special funds associated, non-general fund dollars, also continues to have the funding available.
Okay, thank you. So within the budget, there is a tree fund. It has a very small amount of money in there. I was just wondering if there's another way that we can ensure that the street tree maintenance is taken care of by a uniform level of professional arborists throughout the city, so that we don't have kind of a hit and miss thing. Yeah, if there's any thoughts on that.
It does become a true service level reduction. So one of the, and this is a great example of a situation where we would expect that there'd be some degradation in the quality of tree pruning. It's sort of one of the realities that comes with reductions, where there's severe issues where trees are severely pruned or pruned in an improper way. We would correct that with the property owners through an enforcement mechanism from the tree removal process.
I'm running out of time. So does this impact the tree replacement program that we have for street trees which have basically died? Will this impact that at all?
So to the extent that we have in lieu dollars or dollars that are paid into the tree fund from development projects, we would still be able to use those dollars to replace trees, but it would be on a very limited basis.
Councilmember Wei?
Thank you, Mayor Mohan. So just to follow up question that I would like everybody to pay attention to the supplemental one. I did ask which cities have sidewalk maintenance that's paid by the property owner. So San Jose, Palo Alto, Lozado, Saratoga all require property owner to pay for the sidewalk maintenance. Sunnyvale is sort of part because the property owner maintains the easement. Within the easement is the property owners. So the only city that around us that still have, including us right now, is Campbell. And as for the trees, San Jose, Lozados, and Saratoga all ask property owners to maintain the trees, while Campbell, Sunnyvale, and Mountain View and Palo Alto, Mountain View also maintains the sidewalks themselves. So with the comparison, I really think if our staff can come up with a good plan of how we enforce, or how we change our code so that we can enforce good maintenance of our sidewalks to be safety. I think I would like to look at that to see if that's a feasible, it's feasibly can be done. Because I heard public comments, it's unsafe. So how can we maintain safe sidewalks and trees while still cost recovery for our city? So that I would say I would move forward with this one, but with a plan that we know how to proceed. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Pruitt?
Do we know roughly what percentage of tree maintenance is removal?
No, we don't have that information for you tonight.
Okay, that might be interesting to see, if only to know, which things are the biggest threat to public safety, because I could see some opportunity as well here for some degree of cost sharing. If we want to make sure that the things that are going to be unsafe are abated, and that things that we want to see maintain a certain degree of quality can be, and be consistent to Councilmember Moore's point. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, Councilmember Chow?
Okay, so I think regarding the school field use, the question is, the contract was our residents are able to use the fields and when we maintain it, but then do we lose the access for a lot of residents to use school field?
So through the mayor, we don't know. And so this is the first attempt to council. We have not had this conversation with CUSD, and this could definitely be a follow-up. More than happy to come back and report back to council.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I wonder, is it possible that we only shift the sidewalk maintenance but keep the tree maintenance with the city? So that's a possibility, right? So we have a more uniform look of the trees.
So this is all the staff's proposal. Mm-hmm. So if council's consensus to keep the sidewalk, or to shift the sidewalk maintenance to the property owner, but to keep the trees, more than happy to follow that.
Okay, and for sidewalk, I think safety is a big concern. If there are cracks not fixed, and then if there are, we know that certain property owners are not as well, like me, probably don't. So our menu code need to address a lot of unforeseen issues with this move. But maybe an option to consider is the residents could subscribe to a service by the city that they pay maybe a monthly fee to subscribe to a city-maintained sidewalk. That way we recover the cost and the residents don't have this extra burden of maintaining their own sidewalk. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore?
Thank you. So going back to the operations and maintenance, some contracts for general services such as park tree maintenance for $168,000 will move in-house. Okay, so if you need to maintain all of that equipment, I'm going to assume that I think I've seen cherry pickers, chippers, you've got chainsaws, you've got all this equipment for the city to be maintaining the street trees that we have now. But you're still going to have to hang on to that equipment because you're going to then move the parks contract, park tree maintenance contract to this city. So you're not going to be able to sell off this equipment. You're still going to have people who are skilled in tree trimming on staff. So I'm kind of wondering, would it make more sense to keep the whole tree maintenance in the city's hands since we already have a lot of equipment, or were you anticipating some reduction in full-time employees? You were going to sell off some equipment. What was the plan there?
So the answer is it would be a reduction in the program, not an elimination of the program. We would still retain the equipment to service our in-house needs, our parks needs. at a much more reduced level than we currently have, where we maintain all of the trees. So severely reduced from what's currently in place. Ultimately, we would, in this particular case, we're fully staffed, so we would evolve into a reduced staffing model as well in tree maintenance.
Through the mayor, would we still continue to have the tree tagging that's going on? And I don't know what cost that it has been to the city to maintain that software.
We haven't really gotten to that level of detail on the program and what it would look like. That's likely a nice to have that would start to fall by the wayside in the program, the reduced program.
And point of clarification, so in the chart, we would estimate losing about 3 full-time positions if council decides to remove the street tree maintenance program and shift our responsibility to the property owners. So that will equate to 3 full-time positions.
Okay. Vice Mayor Prune?
Returning to the parks agreement with the school district, I've had the chance to speak with at least one member of the board and with Superintendent Yao on the topic, and got rather different answers about what they thought the impact would be. And given everything that CUSD has been through lately in order to balance its budget, some of those choices being extraordinarily painful for large segments of the community, including school closures, I hope that we approach this one very carefully to ensure that we understand what the impact would be to their budget as well. I hope I'm speaking for everyone on that topic. And in addition, with some degree of sensitivity to the fact that we have some parts of the city where we have fewer parks, CUSD does engage in one-off agreements for joint use with San Jose. So for example, in West San Jose, there is a joint use agreement for Murdoch, but there isn't one for Meyer Holtz, there isn't one for Dilworth, et cetera. So to the extent that we have certain parts of the city that are more in need of that service, perhaps if we could also look at contracts that are specific to those sites, I think that would be appropriate.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We do need to wrap up this, so if we could quickly go through.
Okay, yeah. So the sidewalk maintenance is $1 million. Street maintenance is $500,000. I estimate for $2 million divided by 20,000 households, that's $100 a year per household. So if we do a cost recovery approach where maybe we charge $100 a year, the city can continue to maintain the sidewalk and the street, the tree maintenance, that might be a viable option to consider.
So I mean, through the mayor, we would definitely want to look into the dollar amount, and before we commit to the dollar amount Councilmember Chow proposed. So if council wants us to come back and with more research, we can certainly do that.
Councilmember Wei?
So just a question, would that, if you want to do $100, say it's $100 per household, could that be a tax, or would that has to be voter approved? Just some legal questions.
Yeah, if it were an assessment or a tax on property, it would generally need to be voter approved.
Okay, Councilmember Moore, and this could be the last comment.
Okay, thank you. So I did notice that we don't actually look at the enterprise funds in this review, and the ones that I'm kind of curious about are the Blackberry Farm, Sports Center, and the Recreation Program. And I'm hoping that we could get a little bit more information so that we know how much we're subsidizing through from the general fund to these enterprise funds, because ordinarily an enterprise fund you would want it to be running in the black and taking care of itself. But we support these, and I think it'd probably be good if we talk about what our philosophy is and why we're doing it, just to be clear that this is what's happening and this is why we do it.
And this is a great segue to our next topic for the next council meeting when we talk about fees.
Okay. A very quick follow-up to the. So if it were an on-demand subscription-based service of $100, then that it doesn't need voter approval, right? it's kind of like garbage fee. People can opt in, and then they get the benefit of not having to worry about being cited for unmaintained sidewalk.
We would need to look at the specific Prop 26 and Prop 218 issues with any proposal like that. So we would need to look at those carefully.
Thank you.
Okay, just to wrap up the infrastructure service level reductions, I'm not hearing any of these items to be not considered at all. So the direction to staff is to get the additional information relating to sidewalk maintenance as well as the street tree maintenance for the next, pardon me? And the school district grounds maintenance. So these are three that need more information and need more discussion as we move along. So are we good on the infrastructure? Let's move on to the next category, which is fiscal accountability. Again, here the big ticket item is the law enforcement, and this, my understanding is you're aligning the law enforcement budget with the actuals, which means that over the years, law enforcement has been spending $1 million less for the services that they're providing. And so what this does is actually budget $1 million less to reflect the service levels that are being provided by the sheriff over the years as well as next year. Okay, any other comments? 2 minutes each, please, for any of these items in the fiscal accountability category. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you. So there's the $87,000 for Consolidate Learn to Swim program, and that is the program under Blackberry Farm. And it says that it's due to the program now being run from the Blackberry Farm pool and integrated into those operations. That would be included in the enterprise fund. Would that be correct?
I believe so.
Okay, all right, that's it, thank you.
Councilmember Chow.
Thank you for the proposal to true up the accounting, and I think we received the questions from the residents that about the unassigned bail balance of about $45–50 million. So if we can get more clarity, transparency on what they are allocated for, or they are not assigned. So the assigned and allocated, unassigned, so those, if we can get more clarity on those, that would be great. Thank you.
So it's not related to the category. This is a separate question. Councilmember Chow, is that my understanding?
I think if we get more clarity on those, maybe there are more items that we can true up. It's kind of similar to this. Maybe we are, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so it sounds to me like it's a sort of a separate question outside of the service level reduction discussion that we're having. And maybe City Manager, you can answer Councilmember Chow's questions separately, offline. Any other comments on the fiscal accountability section? Seeing none, should we go ahead with it as it is? All right, we're making good progress here. Last category, the community benefits. This totals $463,000, and this is where I'm assuming there will be some discussion, a great deal of discussion. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the reductions proposed by staff. Keeping in mind that the first item has already been taken care of. Reducing the 4th of July funding, we're done with that. So I had a question. What is reducing funding for partnerships? Can you go into that a little in detail?
Thank you, Mayor. So there are two elements that we're focused on here. One is an agreement that we have with the chamber that we had intended on executing. With the change in leadership at the chamber, there may be a change in how we partner with them, and so we're proposing unbudgeting those dollars and then continuing conversations with the chamber on what our ongoing partnership might look like. So that's in the range of $60,000. And then the other dollar amount in there is associated with the sister cities, and it really aligns the sister cities funding with the policy that the council passed recently. The big element there being that the program allows for the city to pay for 50% of the travel for the mayor for one trip a year. And so the budget was set up for a little bit more than that, and so this reduces it to align with that limitation. So it's a pretty straightforward reduction from that perspective. Of course, this doesn't limit the amount of travel that councils can take. It just limits the amount that the city itself will pay for.
Okay, and that is the current procedure, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay, and just to reiterate, staff is not proposing to cut all these services. We're just looking for different sources of funding outside of the general fund. Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you. So looking at the Earth Day Festival, there was some interest from the Cupertino Library Foundation to perhaps provide some assistance for this. So if we could reach out and see if that is they're still interested in doing that, I think that would be a really important, especially since we have just passed, the Climate Action Plan 2.0, and it kind of ties in with some of the other things that we're doing. And with regards to I know it shows the 4th of July here, so we've already eliminated that. That's already been done there. And going back to the Safe Routes to School budget with the $732,000, if there's some way that could be considered too, because it is there is some outside money that comes into it, about $160,000 from outside funding for that program, but the rest of it is coming from the general fund. So it may be that some of these other community benefits could be covered through that funding somehow, if at all possible. That's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Wei.
Thank you, Mayor Mohan. So my question for the reduced budget for concerts and movies, are those mostly staff overtime, weekend time, or is it the physical renting of the movies? What are the $24,000 cost involved?
I believe they're mostly staff time.
And if, say, Cupertino Rotary or some other nonprofit would like to sponsor that would be volunteer time then?
Correct.
Yeah. Would insurance be covered? It's hosting something like that is always complicated. So I wonder if the city wants nonprofit to host this. First, I'm presuming you're not charging facility fees for that, right? Like Earth Day, we're not charging ourselves. But if some other nonprofit takes over Earth Day, you're not going to charge the renting of the facilities fees. So we're looking at mostly volunteer time to set up and organized events such as the concert, the movies, and the Earth Day.
So what I'm hearing is there's a strong desire to keep the program, but there's also a strong desire to minimize the impact to general fund. So staff, go find those money, find the sponsorship, and I'm looking at the kind sponsors in the audience, and we'll come back to council to let council know how we solve that problem before we proceed.
So I'm using my remaining 30 seconds to say the sheriff's fees and festival for festival organizers. If some organization wants to take over concert, movies, Earth Day Festival, I don't think we should charge them sheriff fees, and maybe that could be considered into the whole package. Thank you.
Noted. Councilmember Chow.
Hi. I appreciate that we are revisiting the contract with Chamber due to leadership change, and really appreciate Lottery to reach out to work with the city. And I would like this item should also include the contract with Cupertino Historic Society. In the past, the funding has been at most $20,000 a year, and now the contract currently is $40,000. So I think we could revisit maybe. I'm not saying eliminate, but possibly work with them to reduce the contract amount. And for Earth Day Festival, the city should consider getting grant, for example, from the Valley Water. They have festival grant for exactly this kind of thing. I hope to keep this very popular festival, but let's look for possible grant and partnership. And for the other work program items, the last item was $75,000. That include a lot of small programs that actually touch a lot of residents. For example, the block leader program, the license plate reader program for public safety, and then the retail diversification of retail. We have becoming a retail desert with mostly restaurant. We really need to improve that for our quality of life. A small investment on how to improve that also will generate future revenue. So I hope these small programs, we should really consider what's the impact of this small program. Maybe it still pays to keep these programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chow. Vice Mayor Fruin.
So I wanted to echo most of what Councilmember Wei had to say with respect to the fees for festivals and festival organizers for the sheriff. I think it's important that these events continue to be able to happen, and these are rather expensive for the organizers themselves. Certainly if there's other money to be found somewhere else for it, great. If we can engage in additional partnerships, fantastic, but I would hate to see any of the festivals go away for want of simply security services. Earth Day, similarly, when we bring back some of the fee schedules and so forth, I think it would be very interesting to know, in order to preserve this event, which I think is extraordinarily popular, given that there are vendors who are for-profit that appear at these events, if there is a way of increasing their fees. They have a very interested audience that is already there, and we might as well charge them what it's worth. With respect to eliminating select city work program projects, I think that is perfectly fine if we want to revisit them later on when budget improves. I think that's something that we can relatively easily pick back up.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that direction to staff. There's no great interest in cutting any of these positions. We did, however, want to reduce the general fund impact, and this is sort of these are all programs that are sort of ripe for sponsorship and outside relationships. So our direction, and I think I'm speaking for the council when I say we should keep all these positions. And remember, for 463,000, the big chunk is 138,000, which we've already done. So all these other ones are, in the big scheme of things, not going to have a huge impact. So my recommendation is that we go ahead and not and save all these programs to the extent possible, and be creative in terms of getting funding to keep the positions going, to keep the programs going. Does this make sense?
I have a general question. So the dollar amount in this table, does that include the full-time employee cost? Or if the service level reduction, then we will look at the employee level reduction later?
So included in your handout, and then if we go to some of the other slides, we try to include full-time staffing impacts in that final column. There's also a footnote. Sorry, we didn't include it in the PowerPoint, but the footnote, the one is that any reductions to full-time staffing would be done over time through attrition. So taking vacancies, moving them around as necessary, as opposed to ensuring our commitment to no layoffs. So any full-time impacts that are part of these service level reductions would be included in that final column. And it's also, it's the 5th column on your handout.
Great. If there are no other comments, this concludes the discussion on the potential service level reductions. Thank you, Council, and thank you, everyone. We will recess, take a short recess till what? 6:45 when we come back for the second part of the special meeting. Thank you very much.